From nail guns to saw blades to laser beams, Warframe has basically everything, including rocket launchers. And today we're gonna be diving deeper into the Ogris, a Mastery Rank 9 primary weapon. As always, my name is Leyzar, and I got a couple of builds laid out for you. Something cheap, something affordable that mostly anybody can build, but of course we also have the quote-unquote endgame setup with a Riven. That said though, please keep in mind that my builds and guides take a new player-friendly approach. I take my time and explain a lot of the details that most veteran players should already be accustomed to. So in case you're a veteran and you already know most of the stuff, please bear with me. And with that out of the way, let's jump into the Ogris. Let's begin by having a quick look at how the weapon handles without any mods equipped, and for that we're simply gonna be taking a couple of free shots. The Ogris is a rocket launcher, plain and simple. It will fire a rocket, it has travel time, it doesn't have any projectile drop off, and upon contact it will create this sizable explosion. Now keep in mind that there are two parts to the damage. About 5% of the damage is in the projectile physically hitting the target, and about 95% is in the actual explosion. And keep in mind the area of explosion can be increased with something like Firestorm. And the weapon can actually take something like Adhesive Blast as well. Now the problem with the Ogris from my point of view is the fact that it's a charge weapon. It's a very quick charge, 0.3 seconds, but unfortunately you do have to charge it, you can't fire it semi-style. It was buffed at a certain point, it was a semi-weapon, so we could go rapid fire, but then they decided, you know what, no, and they reverted back to a charge weapon. But enough about that, let's jump into stats to see precisely what we're dealing with. Mod capacity is gonna be 60 out of 60, and if your Ogris only has 30 out of 30, jump into actions and install the Auto King Catalyst. Now this one is primarily obtained from Nightwave. You gotta do a whole bunch of challenges, get some cred, and then you're gonna be able to pick up a catalyst or two and some other stuff as well. Now this one also shows up on some alerts, especially after dev stream, so keep an eye out for that. Next, how many forma should I use? I recommend 4 forma, that should be enough for the build I'm recommending you guys. Now I format a bit more, 6 times, simply because I want to test a whole bunch of things, and I have a Riven as well, which we will get to test just a tad later. The accuracy of the Ogris is 100, and if you slap on heavy caliber, it falls down to 1.7. Yes, 1.7, and you will see the effect of heavy cal on the accuracy a tad later. Now normally this is a weapon that you aim for the feet, let's be honest here, because the critical chance is simply not there. 5% totally not worth, which is a goddamn shame. Think about it, the critical multiplier at 2.0 is pretty standard, it's pretty decent, so we could make some use out of the crit multi, but the only way to get the weapon to crit consistently would be to use it with something like Lord Harrow. The charge rate is pretty good, 0.3, but on the other hand it is a charge rate, so you can't really rapid fire the weapon. And keep in mind that fire rate mods, let's say something really strong like Vile Acceleration, will have a minor effect on the weapon, simply because when your base is low, percentage increases or decreases will also have kind of a small effect, so bear that one in mind. Next, what do we got? A fire rate of 1.5, thanks a lot, because, well, the charge rate is 0.3, a magazine of only 5, and you don't have that big of an ammo capacity either. Take a look at this one, only 20. Now that is the maximum, so if you're having issues with ammo, you can rely on something like Carrier Prime, or you can use maybe something like ammo pads. I wouldn't recommend modding for ammo. That's just my 2 cents on it. Noise alarming, of course. The reload is a tad on the long side as well, 2.5 for a magazine of only 5. Now the good part is the Riven disposition of 4 out of 5, because basically not a whole lot of players use this weapon. It's not a popular weapon, despite the fact that it's a rocket launcher, okay? It's a goddamn rocket launcher. Status chance is sky high, 35%, and we also have blast damage on the weapon. Now this one was kind of obvious, 700. Now that's a pretty big damage to have by default on the weapon. So let me showcase a standard build for it. We're gonna jump into this one. We got a whole lot of damage with Serration, heavy caliber, multi-shot is mandatory, split chamber, vigilante armaments, and the rest are elementals. Because if you can't go into crit, you don't really have that much of an option. That's the pity with the Ogris. What about some punch throughs? Shouldn't we add some punch through? Unfortunately not. If you add punch through on the weapon, the rocket basically goes through your initial target and doesn't generate any explosion. It will only generate an explosion at the end of its travel path. So adding punch through on the weapon can end up being detrimental to the weapon. So I wouldn't recommend you go for something like Shred. Now on this build I got a whole bunch of corrosive. Essentially I have all the corrosive mods. I got Infected Clip, Stormbringer, Malignant Force and High Voltage. Basically all the electricity and toxin I could find, because again I don't really have that many options. But again there are a couple. You can go for Adhesive Blast. Now what this will do is make the rocket stick to a surface or an enemy and then it will detonate in about 5 seconds. Honestly it's rather pointless. Wouldn't you want it to detonate upon impact? That's just my 2 cents on it. But you can also use Fulmination, I believe, no, Firestorm, 24% increased blast radius, and I would 100% go for this one, especially if you went for Heavy Cal, because let me show you the accuracy penalty of Heavy Caliber on this one. But before we go any further, let me just deactivate Madurai, because I know some of you guys still believe that it actually affects damage in the Simulacrum. Here's a spoiler alert, it doesn't. Okay. So the accuracy penalty, take a look at the rockets. I fired here and 1, 2, 3, they're way over here. Honestly, it's pretty difficult to hit targets even at close range if you choose to use something like Heavy Cal. But let me show you exactly what I mean. Take a look. Take a look at where the rockets actually land. Now the damage numbers themselves are not bad, definitely that is some high amount of damage, but without some crit there, basically against heavily armored targets such as these, I gotta keep on hitting them until I get that armor down and I can finally kill my targets. And by the way, the weapon, yes, will be doing damage to you, so careful on that one. The Ogris is not a bad weapon, definitely not. It just lacks a little bit of something. You didn't need to have a sky high critical chance, but at least, at the very least 15%. Okay, maybe that would be a tad high considering the base damage, but how about 12% DE? How about 12% for this absolutely glorious weapon? I want to have fun with the rocket launcher, but right now it's simply not all that powerful when it comes to heavily armored targets. But when it comes to everything else, Corpus for example, Infested and so on and so forth, the weapon is going to be able to shred through them like a hot knife through butter. But when it comes to heavily armored targets, yes, you will be having a bit of damage, simply because of how the weapon works. There's nothing wrong with the Ogris, it's just simply not catered to targets such as these. Now I'm not even gonna pretend that this is not a later edit, because it is. The Ogris has one more mod which should be pointed out, and this one is exclusive to the weapon. It's called Nightwatch Napalm. Rockets disperse napalm, inflicting 30% damage over 6 seconds across 90% of the explosion area. And yes, if you want to, you can couple this one with Firestorm, but I want to highlight the mod just so you can see exactly what kind of damage it will be doing. So we're going to be spawning in the same Corrupted Heavy Gunners level 120. Now this is a really cool mod, but in the grand scheme of things it doesn't really change all that much when it comes to the viability of the Ogris. Yes, it's awesome, it's beautiful, it adds a layer of very low damage, a layer of crowd control because of the heat proc and all whatnot, but as you can see it won't make a huge difference in the weapon, but it is jolly good fun. So let's mod for a bit of gas and see what it can do against Corpus units. And of course when it comes to gas, you want to mix up together all the heat you can find with all the toxin you can find. So we're going to be getting rid of the electricity and we're going to go to heat with Thermite rounds as well as Hellfire. And now we got a whole bunch of gas on the weapon. Next, let's spawn in some Corpus. What Corpus would you guys prefer? Let's have a look. Corpus units. Whatever tickles your fancy. Let's go for Elite Crewman. Eximus, sure, why not? Let's go for Eximus. We're going to be spawning 8 of these here puppies. And let's see what the Ogres can do against them. Okay, we got a whole bunch of Corpus here. And we're going to shoot the Corrupted Heavy Gunners just for kicks and lol. So I'm just going to do one shot so you can see the amount of damage. Now ain't that bloody beautiful, honestly. But again, when it comes to heavily armored targets, it's gonna be a bit of a different show. Of course, I'm getting all those procs, look at the damage numbers, but unfortunately, they're just not enough. So going for a gas build on something like the Ogres and heading down to Fortuna would be a pretty good idea. Just because a weapon can kill a target doesn't mean it's not gonna be useful for the rest of the 85-95% of the targets. And of course, if you're going up against Bombards or Grenier in general, I would still vouch for Corrosive, but you can go for Radiation as well. And don't even think about Eidolon Hunting, please do not, this is not the weapon for that. Now, let's have a look at a Riven setup because I know you guys want Rivens. What kind of Riven should I be looking for the Ogris anyway? Well, I don't got any critical chance. I can work with Harrow though, so if you're getting a Riven that has critical damage, not critical chance, then you can work with Harrow. But ideally for the Ogris, you want damage, multi-shot, maybe an element of your choosing, something like Toxin would be ideal so you can make corrosive or gas, and a negative as well. Now the Riven that I have is a loaner from a friend. Thank you very much, mate, for loaning me this one. I really wanted to see the full power of the Ogris, and of course it's a Satyata with damage multi-shot and minus damage to infested, which I know is not 100% harmless, but don't blame me if I actually believe it's harmless. I don't really take infested all that seriously. Now let's test the weapon and see if it's any better than before, and of course we're going to be spawning the same corrupted heavy gunners. I think 4 should be enough, and we're also going to be hitting the crewman. Now, even though I don't have gas right now on the weapon, you will see that the results are mostly the same. This is my issue with Corpus. They don't really have all that many defenses outside of something like nullifiers, for example. So basically any heavy damage build does great against them. But when it comes to these guys, even with that great Riven, it still takes a couple of good shots to actually get a kill. How can I make this weapon into a full-blown monster? Just going about it like this, it's simply not enough. So what we can do is go into Warframe buffs. Now, when you go into Warframe buffs, I'll be honest with you guys, you can make even the Kraken look extremely powerful. But in the case of the Ogris, we're gonna be going with Lord Harrow, because I want to give the weapon what it doesn't have. I want to give it critical chance. Now this is my standard build for Harrow. Is not exactly the most ideal build, but for an aura what you can use is something like Rifle Lamp. 27% extra damage to primary weapons. Now 27% as a whole is not a whole lot, but keep in mind the base damage of the Ogris is rather high. For Arcanes, I'm going to be using Arcane Avenger, 2 of them, because they do stack. Link in the cards right now if you want to see a demonstration on Arcane stacking. The beauty of Arcane Avenger is that the bonus applies basically to everything. Your primary, secondary, melee weapon, even your arc gun. And this is a bonus additive after, so it simply stacks on top of what you already have. My weapon has a 5% crit chance right now, but with 2 Arcane Avengers up, it's going to go to 65%. But if I'm gonna use it with Harrow, then what I should do first and foremost is make it look good. There we go. And second of all, I should go into critical damage, because I know I'm gonna be getting my critical chance. I'm also gonna be taking off heavy caliber, because getting headshots with the accuracy penalty from this one is gonna be rather difficult. So we're gonna be taking out heavy cal, malignant force, and go heavily into critical damage with vital sense and bladed rounds. Now we're gonna go full on against the corrupted heavy gunners, but I think we're gonna be needing more of them. Corrupted heavy gunner, let's just spawn 8 of them, and we're also gonna be unpausing the AI so they can hit me and I can get my buffs. We're gonna activate Harrow's 4th ability, which will give us our crit chance, and his 2nd ability, which will give us fire rate as well as reload speed. Harrow is a fantastic frame. Honestly, I love him. He's in my top 3 Warframes. He's a bit underappreciated, to be honest. Did you ever get a thank you from somebody for saving their life because you used your 4th ability at the exact same time? Nope. It's a pretty thankless job, but that shouldn't stop you from using Harrow. There we go. I got my critical chance, and as you can see, as long as I can get the headshot, because I want the 200%, not the 50% from the body shot, I'm gonna be able to completely annihilate these high-level targets. Take a look at that. As for the Ogris, guys, what can I say? I think it needs something a little bit extra, and I don't think it's the semi-firing style. How about a 12% crit chance D? And at the end of the day, if the Ogris becomes just a little bit too powerful, what's the problem? It's not like we're using it in PvP. We're using it just to shoot a whole bunch of mobs. Is that really an issue? And I don't think it would be, to be honest. I think this weapon deserves its chance at a spotlight. After all, we got plenty of weapons which are highly overpowered, something like, I don't know, let's think about it. We got the Amprax, we got the Ignis Wraith. I would love to see the Ogris join the ranks of those outstanding weapons. But my friends, that's pretty much it for the review. As always, my name has been Leyzar. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like, favorite, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. If you got any feedback for me, I would love to read it in the comment section down below. Also in the comment section down below, if you want to suggest a particular weapon review or versus. And in all honesty, I can't exactly promise you that it will be done by next time or even within a week, because sometimes these things take a bit of time. But hey, you can also find me on Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, all the usual places. Until next time, my friends. Bye bye.